Hello, my name is Savannah. I constantly have something to say, and it is both ruining and enhancing my life to an awe-inspiring degree. And that's just the opening line. Yoink! How the time do pass. I left you as an e-girl. I have returned as whatever the hell this is. I've also just checked the news, and a lot has happened since I've seen you last, I fear. I don't know. Bitcoin. Everyone's favorite internet-graduated musical comic also discovered projectors, the fucker. And I finished writing and released 2 books. The first is a poetry collection called Sweet Dark that came out in October, which slaps. I also have a second novel coming out literally tomorrow. It's called The Things We Don't See. Dark, coming-of-age, insane, summer vacation, mystery vibes. Which, oh yeah, slaps. And naturally, because I've spent so much time working on all of this, I've been thinking about not just the books, but about writing and creativity and I guess my relationship with it, and how in a very real way it's the only thing keeping me from blasting myself off of this godforsaken rock. But it's also very challenging, and sometimes it in itself makes me want to blast myself off of this godforsaken rock, while at the same time being the only thing I really know how to do. Which, of course, poses the occasional existential predicament. I think she's only making this video to promote her book. But I also did just throw it around in a sort of modest, self-aware blah 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 blah. Moving right along. If no one else will say it, then fine, I guess I will. Making things is hard. Oh my god, she's so brave. Here is a quick insight into my psyche. Often when I have found myself feeling kind of bad, I will reflect on the last couple weeks of my life. And one of the first questions I ask myself of those couple weeks is, did I write anything? And the answer is almost always no. And instantly, just the idea of an open Word doc floods serotonin into my pitiful little brain as I remember, yes, that thing I do, the thing. And whether that's because I'm simply intrinsically wired to enjoy it, or because I received well-timed praise at impressionable periods in my life. Either way, I struggle to not do it. Writing is how I make sense of everything. It makes me feel purposeful and good in the way sleep makes you feel good. It grounds me in otherwise frightening and uncertain situations. I simply can't not. And I'll say now, although that's what I do, this video isn't just about that. It's about anything you could be or make, and I think a lot of creative people, regardless of what they do, feel the same way. For whatever reason, it's difficult to move through life without our poison's influence, not just consuming creative things, but continuously engaging in the process of creation. It's something that comes really innately while at the same time being a little impossible. So what makes it hard? Well, where to begin? The requirement of vulnerability, for one. It's very scary. The act of creation is rife with uncertainty, doubts at every turn. Writing, especially being such a solitary activity, it's incredibly easy to find yourself in self-propelled thought spirals based around your supposed badness without anyone there to argue to the contrary. Miyazaki said he can feel it every day, the limit of his ability, and he was talking about getting older, but I think that's something a lot of us have experienced. Personally, I can feel myself straining against the limit of my ability as though it were a brick fucking wall, and my true potential, whatever the hell that is some amorphous shape on the other side that I can't quite reach. Also, when you make something, it's hard to feel as though you are not that thing. And when I go through moments of despair about what I make, it feels like I'm despairing about myself, and that, to put it lightly, feels bad. And separately, given the ideal job allegedly lies in the intersection of opportunity, talent, and passion, or whatever the faux motivational capitalist aphorisms are these days, if you enjoy something creative, the usual leap in logic is, oh, I should figure out how to make money from this. Now, before I say anything, I must first state that I am so lucky to do what I do. But with anything, there arises qualms. It's a bit upsetting sometimes to think about the monetization of something that was once rooted in the innocent pursuit of expression. It's upsetting to have to create constraints on what you do in the interest of marketability or commercial appeal or satisfying trends. It's upsetting to be interested in so many variations of that expression, but for it to be unwise likely to seek them all out, firstly because you just don't have enough time, but secondly to create consistency within your body of work, which again has to do with saleability, maybe limiting yourself to one genre, for example. And apart from that, being creative is hard. Creativity on demand is even harder. There's pressure to meet deadlines and to have an endless stream of good ideas with no downtime. Also, social media, eh? Not even mentioning the face fetishist that is the algorithm and people's interest, aka you haven't posted a selfie? Sorry, try again, buddy. What? You're out, like, living your life or working on something that'll take years to finish? Oh, well, fuck you anyway. And given all of that, of course there are outliers, but for the vast majority, there's not even that much money in it. And it's obscene, the amount of people doing exactly what you do, and they might be doing it better. Or maybe you don't feel that way, and if so, I envy you and prepared to think that I am perhaps a little bit pathetic. I fear I lack the sort of helpful, if bullheaded confidence or uncontaminated optimism that when I make something, that thing is new or different or vital. Because I have a tendency towards what we can call cynical realism, and like, of course it's not. When you look at the sheer quantity of things being made, it's hard to think of any of it as anything besides void filler. It's packing peanuts. Even the things that are culturally revered, our most loved pieces of work in a modern sense, like, you only know it exists because of its marketing budget. And a really common little encouragement is just to focus on the work and the rest will take care of itself. But it's a complete lie to say something will garner attention just by virtue of its existence. Make something good and it'll just sort of ascend up into a beam of glorious light, where on the other side sits a panel of drooling Netflix executives, I guess. It's not true. The attention economy is brutal. Making things is like deciding to spend your life playing a rigged, demented slot machine, except instead of quarters, you're gambling everything that's ever made you feel something and like your childhood trauma. We've now reached the bit of the video where I ask, so, is there a point to any of it? I truly don't mean to deter you from anything, by the way. If you're new here, this will all come back around eventually. You just gotta, like, hang on. If I could stop being a pessimist for 2 fucking seconds, I would tell you that I do think there's merit to the line of thought that acknowledges the value and novelty of individual experience. Like, really, nobody has the exact same collection of experiences as you, which means nobody will make the exact same connections as you, which means your work has worth, or is at the very least novel, just by virtue of its birth in the mind of you, specifically one of the chants and abstracts that make up humanity. I also have an inkling that that specific discomfort will ease as I get older. I think I'll feel more sound when I believe in what I've made more as a product of my experience and practice and work rather than the fruit of some so-called innate ability. Anyway, it's rare for authors with lifetime careers to have written their best work in their 20s, so I have time, ? And I'm technically not even halfway through those. I know, odd, given I have the disposition of a haunted 18th century lighthouse. But along with this, I do so hate unearned confidence. I think it's so ugly that I often take too wide a step in the other direction to avoid disappointment or embarrassment, I guess, which isn't any fucking better, mind you. I think a lot about, it's called the dunning-kruger effect, it looks like this. But a lot of the time I end up with a really negatively skewed image of my work. I still struggle in passing to say that it slaps. Because, I don't know, does it? Who's to say? Me? No. I'm pretty sure it doesn't even matter what I think about it at all at the end of the day. And I just want to write. I don't want to be a salesperson, even worse when I feel like the thing I'm selling is me. So saying that, and given all of this, how can I measure or reaffirm the importance or necessity of what I do in a way that's healthy and good? What, aside from the inescapable personal pull I feel towards it, is supposed to motivate me enough to keep me shoving that fucking boulder in the eyes of the masses? Well, firstly, to quote the great and illustrious watskycles, I would not have spent a decade doing this if I did not believe I was at least a tiny bit ridiculously filthy at it. And yeah, there's no greater feeling than when you just get it, or when someone gets you. And generally, I place the opinions of my peers in incredibly high regard. Sometimes everything I make just feels like an elaborate scheme to get the people close to me to tell me good job. We could perhaps just end the video there. I truly have zero desire for any sort of fame or public adoration as a symbol of approval. It's certainly an unfortunate side effect of what I want to do, but I do just genuinely want the people I love to think I'm really cool. But I also want to make something, I don't know, I guess, important. But I don't know what makes things important. I'm struggling to figure it out. I also don't know why I want to make something important if I don't even know what it means. Is it the number of people reached? Is it the strength of the impact on those people? Is it how much it inspired people, or the subsequent importance of the work? Are things only important if they change people and not just entertain them? Or is pure entertainment just as important in the midst of all this? Is comfort in itself change? Or is my inclusion of people even write, and does a work's value exist outside of how people perceive it? But is it work that's the point? Political, or speaks to a cultural moment? Prizes it's won, but if prizes are just the same incestuous academic spirit stick passed around year after year, is there even any feel Mr. Keating there hating me? And I know it's impossible to quantify, but I feel like the most important work is anything that made even one person not want to die. Do you think it matters? Do you think it matters? Does this matter? Am I trying hard enough? Does that matter? Is it how hard I tried? 10 years? 50? 100? I'll write all these books. When's the last time someone will pick one up? Not just memorable, unforgettable. Is it all just don't forget me? Don't forget me, 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 don't forget me. You know, when it's like that, a lot of the fear comes from uncertainty and a lack of control and a worry, at least for me, about being misunderstood somehow. And although, as I've said, it's not exactly transcendentally useful advice, it does help to focus on the work instead of the unknowns. I've been thinking a lot about the idea of making things deliberately, making sure in every element's inclusion and every word's inclusion there was an active decision that occurred. I'm also trying to get better at reading what I write as if I'm someone who's reading it for the first time. I don't know if anyone's ever embroidered, but the front of an embroidery is always nice and clean. And at the back is, of course, all the knots and the mess and the mistakes. And when I read what I write, I struggle to see anything besides that, like only the cogs turning in my head and what I was trying to do. And because of that, I think I end up missing both some of my own weaknesses and strengths. I'm also trying to have more answers. This is very me specific, but what I write tends to ask a lot of questions, which I think reflects me as a person. I wonder things all day long in trains of thought, which are concluded only by a spirited return to the beginning to ride them all over again. Though in these videos I've made in an effort to avoid the acidic aftertaste of an unrelenting doom funnel, I like to end with, if not an answer, at least a direction or an idea of how to proceed. And I think there's more of a place for that, especially in my poetry. These are all things I can control. But even after all that, when I think about the stuff that's resonated with me, like my favorite stories and my favorite poems, I definitely have ideas or arcs that I tend towards, like things I think will probably hit. But there's no real through line. The things I love have come to me purely through serendipity, either because they caught me in the right mood or at the right time in my life. And I can only assume that if someone is to love what I do, and therefore me, it'll be a similar situation. I'll just have caught them at the right time. And I think I've maybe spent too much time concerned with wanting to prove something. It's only really recently sunk in that I'm not writing to try and convince people who don't like what I do. I'm writing for the people who would have liked it anyway. There's a Franz Wright poem where the first few lines go, "One of the few pleasures of writing is the thought of one's book in the hands of a kind-hearted, intelligent person somewhere." And yeah, I think that's kind of it. Really, I just want to make someone feel something, and is there maybe something selfish about it? If that's what it is, if it's all just a glorified, rambling time capsule or deranged, infinite, initial scrawling into the oak of the world. Of course, creativity is not an entirely selfless endeavor, but I also don't think it's selfish to want to be the one to give people those defining experiences or comfort or unexpected moments of understanding that you've had. I think it just speaks to our desire to connect. I want to return or match or expand on what I feel the world has given to me. I want to make somebody feel how Ada Limon makes me feel when she says, "Gleaming in its dying, like us all, like us all." Or when Mary Oliver says, "You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves." Or when Tracy K. Smith says, "So brutal and alive, it seemed to comprehend us back." Or when Frank O'Hara says, "They are just plain scrambled eggs, and the warm weather is holding." And it's scary. Sharing anything at all acts as a fuck you to the claustrophobia of the human experience, even in the face of the violence of discovery. It's scary to be known, to let things be seen, to say, "This is as good as I can do and I hope it finds you well." But the ability to create is an evolutionary birthright that it's impossible to not be worthy of and really short-sighted to waste. And when you consider that, what it actually means to be here at all and able to do anything, thoughts of, "Oh, I'm worried it's not good enough," sort of dissipate. And I don't really want to be someone who burns really bright, really quick anyway. I want time to think. I want to move slowly. I'm a little afraid of aging, which is a whole nother thing. But this is like one of the major things that makes me so excited for it. I want to get better. I want to think better. I want to know more. I want to see what I make with more time. And I don't know when we'll start burning the books, but I feel like this will be around for a while, in some form anyway. Or even if it's not, the way I hope to make people feel, or the way you've made people feel or have felt, it'll all likely in largely invisible ways stick around. I think that's probably true. I think there will be something left to remember that we were here, doing this, telling each other stories while the light died. And I do want to make everything good, but I also just want to make it, you know? Anyway, my books are available for... No, we're not doing that. Listen, I'll just play you out.
Where my mind goes half of the time. Guess we all get older. I don't want to be here if you're not. I'll remember you. You said